this. Switches between the slideshow and whatever's on this computer.
Okay.
The slideshow runs all the time.
Okay.
That way, if something is fussing, we show this.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for showing up bright and early, and maybe a little bit bleary-eyed, maybe bushy-tailed. Depends on what you did last night. Again, I'm Dylan Smith. I'm the editor and publisher of TucsonSentinel.com in Tucson, Arizona, and a member of the Lion Board of Directors. And again, thank you very, very much for coming and taking part in another Lion conference. I think we got things off to a really good start yesterday. I was hearing a lot of good things coming about of those sessions. And we're going to keep that rolling along with some more expertise that gets shared, some more vigorous, interesting discussions. Before we really get moving, I want to again thank especially our hosts here at Columbia College Chicago. They've been wonderful yet again, and so very helpful at all the logistical things that are necessary to bring this kind of event together. So please give them a round of applause. Thank you. We need to thank the folks that make this possible. The Knight Foundation has been a big supporter of Lion Publishers, and this year for this conference really made it possible for us to give out these sort of travel scholarships that we have done to make sure that people can come here and be a part of this. We should thank our friends at Facebook who have joined in supporting Lion, along with the Democracy Fund, the Ethics and Excellence in Journalism Foundation, and the sponsors, underwriters specifically of this conference, folks like the News Revenue Hub, the Neiman Foundation, the Poynter Institute, the Center for Cooperative Media, and our really great vendors who are here, not just to try and get your business, but to learn more about what it is that local indie publishers need and be a part of that conversation, and that's a really cool thing. You've got Broad Street Ads, The Clean Machine, Empower Local, Maps.com, Site Impact, Town News, Virtual Communities, Web Publisher Pro. All those folks are here to be a part of this. Go pick their brain a little bit and let them pick your brain too. And to get things moving along, we've got Steve Beatty to give us the rundown on where we're going to go. Thanks, Steve.
Good morning, everybody. Quick rundown, which will be, we'll be here the first half of the day, and then after lunch we'll have one last session in this room, and then we'll move to the breakout rooms. If you were here yesterday, you know the breakout rooms are down the side. A, B, and C is just around the corner. If you go left around the corner, you end up at the bathrooms. We won't be in there. This morning I'd like to introduce someone who probably has the thickest skin in the room. Doreen Mendoza from Facebook is a recovering journalist, having worked in both broadcast and print. When you've gotten on the Lion's Den and said, this isn't going right for me for Facebook, Matt Dorenzo or somebody's gotten in touch with Doreen or one of the people on her team who are here to help us make the connection between the local indies and Facebook. And this morning she's going to talk about the tools that local journalists can use to better put Facebook to work. So please welcome Doreen. Thank you.
Good morning, you guys. It's cold outside, isn't it? I was not prepared for this. Even in New York, it was like 75 degrees yesterday. So let's do this. There we go. So, no, I guess I can't see them.
Okay.
I know there's no place to put it. So this morning I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what our product teams have been up to. Hi, Kelly. In developing products for the business side of local journalism. So we're going to talk about Facebook Analytics, instant articles. There's a product called Today In that some of you have probably seen. I know Steve and I have talked about it. And we're going to talk about the breaking news tag, which Eastsider LA was a part of that test, and the local accelerator, which started with subscriptions and has now moved on to membership to support those business models. And and we're going to be talking a little bit about how that is going, and we'll wrap it up with some resources. And a little bit about me. I did work in local newspapers in Southern California. I worked at 2 papers that were shut down, and we were all let go. And then I worked at a local TV station for a while as the assignment desk manager, which, if any of you have ever worked in local TV, just is a fancy way of saying I got to boss people around all day long and tell them they had to go cover this thing and that thing. And I wasn't super popular, but I was really great at it. I don't know. All of you have probably seen this slide a million times. This is what Facebook looked like in 2004. Way before we ever started working with media publishers. But the roots of Facebook was exactly the same in that we were helping people connect with what was important to them. A lot of this, as you know, started out with schools that they wanted to connect with, employment, people, and just people in their lives, their friends, and that mission hasn't changed. We did a local news survey recently asking people what they wanted to see more of in their news feed. This was after the recent meaningful social interactions changes. And what they told us, 80% of the survey takers told us they wanted to see more local news. And they wanted to see this local news in their Facebook feed. I'm going to have to surrender this. So what does that mean as far as local goes? The way we think about it is in 3 different ways. Local meaning geographic, where I used to live or where I currently live now, who I identify as, my community of people, and also affinity, what I love and what I love to do. This is something like maybe I really love to ride bicycles and I follow the Tour de France. So I have an affinity for that kind of community, and I want to know what that community is doing all the time. In line with that research, we have developed 3 different products. One of them is breaking news. I don't know why it's not breaking new. The S is just in white and the bar didn't go all the way across. Breaking news has been around for just a little bit. We just concluded 2 beta tests, and what it allows a publisher to do is tag something up to twice a day as breaking news. So breaking news doesn't happen every day, especially with publishers who are national in scope. Maybe somebody like Chalkbeat doesn't have traditional breaking news every day, but it allows you to tag 2 of your stories as breaking news that shows up in newsfeed and on mobile, and allows people to sort of differentiate that news from other content. Of the publishers who tried this and who were in our tests, the one most important thing, they did get more traffic and they saw a lift, but the most important statistic we saw was the share lift. So they saw an 11% increase in shares, which means in the world of meaningful social interactions that content is showing up in other places besides one person's newsfeed. So that's really good news. We really encourage shares as an important metric. So this is a good indication that this is working. It's not, no, it's still in testing. Yeah, but it is available for 100% of the US to see of the people who are testing it, but it's not yet fully rolled out to the US. We're gonna test it in Australia next. Developing news is also currently testing. So what this allows you to do is publishers who have the breaking news tag can then mark something as developing. And as you all know, if you've covered a breaking news story like the hurricane recently, you want to add on things for people to follow. We know this about it now. We know this many power outages. We know these communities were affected. And this allows you to sort of string together all of those developments so your readers can go back and find one place for all of that content instead of scrolling through or being notified about each individual post. How many people have seen Today In? Anybody? Yep. Okay, Lance. This is a product that is also being tested. It doesn't have any publisher input. What it does is it looks at geographic click density in a particular location. So if Berkeley side is publishing content and through the Facebook data that we see, there are people in Berkeley clicking on that content, it gets geographically determined to be a local news source. So somebody like the New York Times, even they're being read all across the country. The clicks are coming from all over the place, so they don't receive the same type of click density data. So these are all for local publishers, and what it does is aggregates the content into one surface outside of Newsfeed, but still inside Facebook. Yeah.
I've seen in that Berkeley, New Jersey, included in.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah.
I know that was just a few weeks ago in your briefing, but I've definitely seen multiple Berkeleys, not just Berkeley, California.
Okay, definitely let us know when you see that. Okay. They are trying to take it from human choice to algorithm, and I'm sure there are some false positives there. What you'll see if you click through at the Today In surface is content from news publishers, updates from pages, group discussions, so they'll have group pages or discussions in groups, and events. We also just announced yesterday that we're adding a local sports section to this because people really wanted to see local sports. We've also added some first responder alerts and some school information because people also wanted to see that. Now, this is different from Newsfeed because it's not going to show you content that you are already connected to. So people in New Orleans, in this example, are not going to see necessarily the pages that they follow or groups that they follow. This is going to surface all new content for them. Everyone in the city should see the same Today In surface. In January, we launched it out just to a very few specific cities. In March, we expanded that by 32. In August, we added up to 60. And by the end of this year, we hope to have it in 150 cities. So those are the 3 different products that we've launched to test in the US around local news. We also have instant articles subscriptions. For those who aren't doing subscriptions yet, but are thinking about it or membership, this is solely focused on how we're building out subscriptions through instant articles. So I understand that many of Lion members were unhappy with our recent changes with instant articles, where some of you were using and testing instant articles, but because of the new threshold, the new click-through threshold, some of you were kicked off and decided not to appeal that. So if that is true for you, I would encourage you to rethink it, get in touch with Matt or Ned or Stephanie or someone, and let's look at that again, because if it makes sense strategically for you to be on instant articles, then we've made a lot of improvements that could help you later down the road as you think about moving toward subscriptions, or as you look at getting newsletter signups. So we started instant articles in 2015, as some of you know, and we've made a lot of improvements to it since then. We basically wanted to help publishers who had mobile sites that took a long time to render, because we saw people were abandoning the articles much too quickly, and they never got to see the content that they were looking for. So instant articles, you get all the clicks for instant articles, but it takes you to a surface where, so in instant articles, you sign up for it, and basically you send the article over to Facebook, and it also updates in real time, but people are not necessarily taken to your mobile site. You can sell against it. You can put your own ads in here, or you can have Facebook fill the ad spaces with their own inventory. So the traffic lift from Instant Articles has been pretty good. In the US, it's about 25% lift. But in places where mobile and mobile sites don't necessarily render really great, it's been 80%. Yeah. We've also been working really hard on the monetization opportunities inside Instant Articles, and we'll see that in just a second. But it has gotten better. From 2015 to 2017, there's at least a 2x increase on average per page. The 3 CTAs that we currently offer, we're still testing subscriptions, so it's not widely available. One of them is a page like, so you can put in a CTA for a page like, a CTA for email newsletter signups, and one for app downloads. For newsletter signups, of the publishers who have tried this, and these are sort of large publishers who are using this currently, there are an average of 30,000 email signups per the CTA per day. So it's a huge number. Now, these are big publishers that are reporting this back to us, but it is a big number. Again, this is an average. It's not, there are wide variations, but that's the data that we've seen. So moving along from this part of the journey into more retention, conversion parts of the journey with Instant Articles, they're looking now at subscriptions, and this is a small test. But what the publisher requirements are for using Instant Articles for subscriptions: flexible models, transaction happening on your mobile site, the publisher has full control of the data, and you have full control over the offers and pricing. So if you're thinking about doing this in the future, or you're looking at possibly offering a subscription model or a meter, then it might be worth the time to take another look at whether Instant Articles will be good for you if you're using Facebook for that kind of traffic. The subscriber experience authentication means that if a subscriber goes to your page and they hit what would normally be a meter, they're able to just go past that. They never see an offer because we recognize that they're already a subscriber. Okay, so these are some of the product features that we have with the subscriptions tool. You'll see the little subscribe button right next to the San Francisco Chronicle logo, or maybe you can't, it's a little bit small. Inline CTAs that appear within the article. The bottom sheet, or the toaster, so it kind of pops up from the bottom once they continue scrolling through. There it is. The full publisher control over the paywall. On Android, this loads inside the Instant Article, but on iOS, it will only load on your mobile site. And then account linking so that it recognizes who is a subscriber and who is not a subscriber. And then the Washington Post is testing upsells in that little blue button up there. But you can offer other things. And so what we see were that people who used Instant Articles were 17% more likely on average to subscribe through Facebook. And again, this is a small test. It's not a huge publisher test with different sizes of publishers. These publishers are local, but they're all about the same size. So what they're looking at for the future in Instant Articles subscriptions is giving more flexibility and control to publishers, more tools outside of Instant Articles, so maybe there's something connected to your Facebook page that you'd like to use, and then the retention and propensity modeling. Is anyone here using Facebook Analytics currently? Not Insights, but it's a free separate surface called Facebook Analytics. Yeah, okay, you are. Oh, well, of course you are. Okay, so Ned here is gonna be your Facebook Analytics expert. If you are thinking about using the Facebook Pixel, or you're currently using the Facebook Pixel to either create campaigns or track audience, Facebook Analytics will blow your mind. It's so much more useful than anything else we have out there right now. You can do custom events, cohort events. It's really, really useful, but it does take a little bit of time to learn. I've been to 2 trainings already internally, and I'm still like, whoa. But it is very, very powerful if you are well-versed in the Facebook pixel. This next section, Facebook Analytics, is all about the measurement side of driving your business. So what Facebook Analytics does, it's free. You don't have to have an ad account. What you need to do is implement the Facebook SDK, the developer kit, on your website. Once you do that and implement the pixel, that's all you need to start setting up campaigns. So that does require some developer work, but hopefully, I think Lion offers you guys some discounted developers who can help you get this started. But I think that you guys have such great control over your sites and your audiences and who you want to reach that this could be a very powerful tool for you. And I'd like to work with Ned and Stephanie and Matt and Steve to make sure that we are making this available and can track the different ways that you guys are using it. So what Facebook Analytics does, this is an example of a cohort analysis, and what they're trying to do is see of the people who download their app, how long are they retaining them for on their articles. And what this sparkline shows is that there was a bump in the beginning, and then it went down a bit, and now it's kind of trending flat or down. So what this should tell the publisher is that to look at any changes they made on their app. What kind of offers are they making that might be driving people away? Did they change their content significantly? What is it that they're doing that is causing people not to stay as long inside their app reading the content? Did they change the links? What does this tell them? And these are just some of the things you can get from using Facebook Analytics. So maybe I didn't explain this very well. What it does, what Facebook Analytics does in cooperation with the Pixel, is it will track your visitors across your app, your mobile website, your Facebook page, and then any other sites that you may know of that you want to track. So if I go to your page, I click on a story, I go to your mobile web, or maybe I go visit your website later because I was in a place with a bad connection or something, I watch a video, and it's going to track all my activity and what you're doing. And then if I decide from there, I read a story, and then I click on subscribe me for this newsletter, that gives you some type of signal, depending on what you're trying to track, about how valuable I might be as a potential subscriber, a potential member, information like that. And you can put me in a cohort then of women between a certain age and another certain age who are most likely to read X type of stories, especially if I'm going from your page to your site reading only like a health kind of story. Not that I'm aware of. The question was whether it tracked Instagram traffic. I don't know. Well, I can find out. It should. And it can also tell you people who go to Facebook and visit your stories and click on your stories on Facebook, but never actually go to your site, which is also important information. How do you get those people from Facebook back over to your site? These are just different examples of what you can track. There's something called you can make a campaign where you can set up 2 different events. So I want to track people who went from my site and did a thing, they read a story, and then also signed up for my newsletter, just so you can kind of get a sense of how many visitors are taking these separate actions. Gyms use this a lot, where they want to see who went from their Facebook page and then actually made an appointment to get an introduction to their offer that they're making for a gym membership, who actually came into the office, how much time they spent on your site or your page. And then if you run into issues with the Pixel, you just call Ned, and he will help you. And then Ned will call me. But if there's enough interest here, and if you guys talk to Ned and Steve and Matt, and you want to set up a separate workshop to learn how to use the Pixel and then learn, how to use Facebook Analytics, we can do that. This is a different look at how the product team is looking at offering solutions across all the user pay models. So we have instant articles and other formats and products. Then we have the full funnel with ads targeting and insights. And then we have a few things for retention that we're still working on. And then we have program support, where these are things off of Facebook, outside of the platform, that we're also working on to support publishers. How many of you have heard about the Accelerator program? Who aren't in it? Okay, we have loved doing this Accelerator program. What we did is last half we brought in 14 metro publishers who had subscription models, and we put them all in a room. We had Tim Griggs come in and design a program that showed them how to accelerate their digital subscription acquisitions. And that's all they did. That's all they focused on. They're now working on projects that will be published late this year or early next year. And they've shared learnings along the way. They've talked about emails and newsletters and interstitials. We looked at stuff that they own, their landing pages, and what worked and what didn't there on the offers. And we also talked about stuff they didn't own, like search, social, and how they could improve their efforts there. So the program itself is not about Facebook. We don't bring you in and teach you everything about Facebook. We bring you in and help you identify your own challenges, and then match you up with a coach and some experts who can help you answer some of the questions that you're facing. We are building solutions, we hope, on Facebook and off Facebook. We do talk about Facebook a little bit, but not until maybe 6 or 8 weeks in. It's multi-weeks. This one was about 3 months, and the membership one that we just started with some Lion members is going to be just a little bit longer than 12 weeks because of the holidays and midterms, but it's basically the same structure: 3 in-person sessions, webinars, coaching, and projects at the end. The value for news publishers that we've heard is mostly bringing people together who are all doing the same type of work, but they're doing it in isolation or with a very small group. So you're lucky to have Lion so that you can share these ideas with each other. But some publishers feel very isolated in the work that they're doing. They don't know how to reach out and say, well, what are you doing about this? And what we see in bringing people together in one room is that it makes it so much easier to share information when you're standing right next to a person. The skills and resources, and then Facebook loves that we get to invest in a vision, something that you have wanted to try for a long time but maybe haven't had the chance to because either it costs too much money or you just don't have access to the right coach or the right expertise. That's a great value for us. This is just another look at what the program is. The $200,000 grants were for the first cohort. We were able to get $100,000 grants for the second cohort for the membership publishers. And you can basically use it on anything that was covered in the accelerator that's going to help you acquire new members, as long as it can be measured and that you can share what you've learned afterward with a broader group. This is a little video about the membership.
Local news is at the heart of the Facebook Journalism Project. That's why we started the 3-month, $3.5 million Local News Subscriptions Accelerator.
It's an accelerator designed to help metro publishers in the U.S. take a big leap forward in their subscription businesses. It is Facebook funded and organized, but it's not really about Facebook.
We gathered 14 local news publishers from across the country to collaborate, learn from experts, and help each other.
In session 1 in New York, we focused on the big picture. Session 2 was more focused on external acquisitions. And the third session was focused on filling gaps that we identified over the course of the 12 weeks.
After the first session, we came back to our organization with a lot of ideas that we then put into action and are already seeing the results from. I feel incredibly grateful to be here, meeting and being able to learn from all the people who are here. There's some incredible minds.
As an industry, even though we sort of know each other, you became our catalyst for change. And I think it's very important that a lot of people recognize it, because you are allowing us to have a conversation about our digital future.
this has been a way for us to work together, and for Facebook to support this has been tremendous.
The connections that we've made with other organizations and other newspapers and other journalists, that's going to last long beyond this program.
This program has been perfect. The timing couldn't have been better, and I'm really glad that it's going to keep going because it's exceptional.
And these are just quickly some of the results from the first accelerator. San Francisco Chronicle saw a 700% increase in newsletter signups and subscriptions in the time they've been in the accelerator. 68% year-over-year reduction in acquisition costs for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The Seattle Times, who's been doing subscriptions for quite some time, even saw a 63% best single-day acquisitions after they started with the accelerator, utilizing the things they had learned there. And we already heard this quote. So we're going to continue to do this as far as we know. So we've expanded the subscriptions accelerator with the membership accelerator, and we made $1 million contribution to Newsmatch, and hopefully we're going to use some of the lessons we're learning in the membership accelerator in Newsmatch. And then we also created, we took the Facebook Foundations desk that's available to Lion and INN members currently through Stephanie Murray's work, and we gave that same model to another local news organization, and they've taken that and helped their members learn about instant articles and all those other things. Yeah.
So there's local news and then there's hyper-local news, and a lot of the organizations that I saw featured in this look like established, local news organizations.
In subscriptions, yes. So the membership one is different. There are, I think, 6 different Lion members in the membership. 8 Lion members in that one. So we were conscientious of that, but there just weren't any hyper locals we were aware of that could take advantage of a subscriptions accelerator. So we started out where we knew we had those subscriptions people, and with the membership one, we've expanded that. And we don't know what we're going to do in the future yet. We have done a video pilot that we may launch, or audience development. We're still working on what the next accelerator will look like. But both cohorts are very valuable to us. Okay, I think I have run over time. These are some of the quotes from the membership accelerator participants, some of which are here. And then this will be available to all of you afterward, but these are all of our online resources if you need any more assistance or want to learn anything more about what we talked about today. Okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for a whole lot of audience questions for Doreen, but are you going to be around for a little bit and people can hit you up? Yeah. Excellent. Coming up right now to give us a quick spiel about who he is and what he does is somebody that most of us know and love, Kenny from Broad Street.
Thank you. Can I use this by any chance? Can I use this? Okay.
Yeah. Get set up.
All right, yeah. So I'm just going to pull up one page. I'm not going to demo anything. Let's see.
You got it?
Oh, got it. I didn't know it was going to work. No, it didn't. There we go. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm from Broad Street. Some of you may know me. Broad Street is an ad server, primarily for independent news publishers. And what we do is set up a publisher primarily a local magazine or a local news publisher or magazine publisher for ad sales success. Usually when I do this talk, like I try and give you a demo or a good idea of what BroadStreet does, but what I'll do is I'll just cut it short and say that if you are a startup publisher, if you're a publisher who is trying to figure out how to hit the ground running with advertising, what BroadStreet does is set you up to hit the ground running. So we set you up with the best practices, give you the best chance of ad sales. And we do that really because most of you are journalists and you're not technical, and setting yourself up in that way is kind of tough if you kind of just go it alone. So without getting too much into BroadStreet, what I will talk about is 10 advantages. So has anybody seen 10 advantages in the past few months? So we have a few hands. So as a niche publisher or local publisher, you have inherent advantages when it comes to advertising sales. Center for Cooperative Media came out with a report yesterday that said something like 87 or 97% of publishers still rely on advertising in some way. Some people would like to say that advertising is going to go away entirely. I don't think so. I think as reader revenue picks up, I think we're going to see what it does in the next few years. Publishers essentially validate their audience, and their publication, in essence, becomes more attractive to advertisers because they've shown that people are willing to pay for the content that you're producing. So I kind of see a two-legged approach to sustaining news websites going forward. Reader revenue, I think, is going to be very important, but also advertising. Because you are bringing people to your site, there's demand to get in front of people, and you're always going to find advertisers who are willing to pay to do that. For the past 5 years at Lion, and BroadStreet's been a Lion/Block by Block sponsor since 2012, we've been talking about diversifying your revenue streams. All right, how can we find multiple ways to fund the publication? So as we're starting to see reader revenue opportunities, which is fantastic, and I hope that takes off, we really want to remember to fund the publication in as many ways as possible. So as a small publication in a niche audience, you have inherent advantages. You're the publisher. You have the ability to offer your advertisers anything that you want to. But most publishers don't actually do that. They play the same game and sell the same thing that Google Display Network is selling. So when you visit most news publications, Gannett, whatever it is, you see like 728 by 90s, 300 by 250s in the sidebar. These things are really hard to sell. If you're having a tough time selling advertising, and that's what you're doing, it's no wonder, because you can buy the exact same thing for probably a third of the price through Google Display Network. So what we do, and we're not anti-Google, right? We're saying that you can survive alongside them. But we're saying that as the proprietor of your publication, you have an agility that you need to take advantage of. You have an ability to work with your advertiser and give them something that's actually going to work for them. Give them something they're going to be happy about, something that's ultimately going to get them to say yes at the ad sale, but also is going to get them to renew 6 or 12 months from now. So I would recommend checking out 10 Advantages. It's a pretty dense read, but everything that we've learned as a company at BroadStreet is in these 36 pages. So check that out. From the people who have read it, like I said, it is pretty dense. They said they read it several times over. We had one publisher in Kansas who has several magazines throughout the country who said that he demanded everybody print it out and keep it on their desk. So I put 4 months into writing it. It's everything that I would tell you, if we did a one-on-one or a phone call together. So I'd say check that out. That's the only thing. And then if you like what you read in 10 Advantages, talk to us about BroadStreet. I'd love to show you what we do because we set you up to take advantage. So thank you. Oh, and I didn't mention it. This is broadstreetads.com/10-advantages. And if you Google BroadStreet 10 Advantages, there's like the Cliff Notes version on MediaShift. Not nearly as in depth, but it gives you a good idea of what it's all about.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken.
All right, thanks, Kenny. And just a reminder that on the back of the printed program is a list of all our sponsors, including Kenny, the ones that have tables out there, and there's a little place for them to write their initials in. And at the end of the conference, when everybody has turned in one that has all the 8 sponsors' initials on it, we'll have a drawing for a gift card, $100 gift card. Also, if you haven't downloaded the online version, it's Guidebook is the app, and once you're in the app, you can look for Lion 18, and you'll get any of the things that we've changed and updated since the program was printed. Now I'd like to introduce one of the Lion board members and a fellow at Democracy Fund, Tracy Powell, and she's brought along a few friends for our next session, and now we'll let her introduce them. But Tracy's a valued board member, and we wouldn't be where we are without Tracy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. So a year ago, I wrote a report for the Gates Foundation and a couple of other funders about New Jacks, and I spoke here about New Jacks, and these are publishers who I found were the emerging leaders in the industry. They were at the cutting edge of media, publishers of color. And so while doing that research, I found another group of people who didn't quite fit the mold precisely, but they caught my attention. They were really interesting because these were legacy news organizations who were bringing in younger folks to take over their organizations and bring them fully into the digital era. And so I've invited a few of them here today so that we can talk about 3 major myths about particularly the black press and how they are now not just black press but black media. I think there's a definition, there's a subtle difference between the press and media. And so we'll talk about a little bit about that, where they are, where they're going, and how we can collaborate with them. So very first person I want to bring up is Tony Draper, who is the publisher of the Baltimore and the Washington Afro-American newspapers, right? Have a seat. The next person is Marshall Latimer, and he is the editor-in-chief of the Atlanta Voice newspaper. We're working on the publisher part. Jim Washington is the publisher of the Atlanta Voice. He's also the publisher of the Dallas Weekly. He's on vacation right now, but Marshall's the one who's running the show, so he's the most important person now that needs to be here. And lastly but not least, my co-moderator, Tyree Worthy, publisher of the Gentilly Messenger. So I want to just get started real quick. I'm going to sit down because this is going to be a conversation. But I want to start off by knocking down 3 major myths. Myth number 1, these publications are not digitally savvy. Tony, can you please share with us, how did you build 700,000 followers on Facebook?
Okay, first of all, let me thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Lion, for having me here. Let me say I'm one of the legacy publishers who are bringing in the younger publishers.
You still young too.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We've been on Facebook since 2008, and so we built those followers over time, intentionally, just pushing it out. We have great content. We've been in existence. My great-grandfather founded the Afro-American newspapers in 1892. So we just celebrated our 126th anniversary. But we recognize, like all of you, that we had to embrace digital. And so when the opportunity presented itself almost 30 years ago, we took down every variation of Afro, Afro.com, Afroam.com, Afro.org. I mean, we just did it all, but we were intentional about our Facebook. We, like many of you, though, are still struggling with how to monetize that. So we push it out, we talk about it, we engage our audience by way of social media, with Facebook certainly being an important part of that.
700,000. How many publishers?
Well, 667.
700,000. How many other publishers in this room can say that? And y'all are not digitally savvy. Marshall, talk to me. Marshall, you've been at Atlanta Voice for the past year, right? Mm-hmm. And so in that time, can you talk to me about how you grown your audience on Instagram?
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Lion Lion Publishers. For us, we tried a number of strategies to grow our audience on Instagram. When I started, there were about 700 followers, and we've since grown that to about 3,500 followers in a year's time. We did that through a number of ways. One of the things is that we were intentional about being at the places where our audience wanted to be. Right. So we attend, Atlanta is like a Hollywood East. And so we have been fortunate to be able to interview a lot of like stars and celebrities. Our viewers respond well to that. Additionally, because of the access that we've been able to get to events and things of that nature, we were able to host a lot of contests and provide opportunities for our audience to attend these events and red carpet events that they want to go to. And then third, nothing beats a great story. So even the micro stories that we post on Instagram are stories that mean something. So to your audience. To our audience.
Nice. You did mention that you do events and connecting with your audience that way. And you also do both print and digital offerings. Could you talk more about how you connect with where your audience is?
Yes, absolutely. So my publication is also a legacy publication. We're only 53 years, so we're creeping up behind the afro. But we've been in print since 1966. Haven't missed a week, and for us, we have also looked into other products. So not only do we print a publication, but we also do 2 magazines. One is a magazine targeted towards high school juniors and seniors called Next Phase. And it's about helping families help their children or their young adults go to the next step. So whether that is college, whether that's the military, trade schools, we have it all in a twice-a-year publication that comes out in the fall and spring. Additionally, we have another publication called Now, which is an acronym for No Other Way, and it's a magazine targeted towards our senior population, especially active baby boomers. And so it's travel, it's nutrition, it's fitness. For example, we have an issue coming out in December, and we have the former mayor, Shirley Franklin, who was the first woman mayor of Atlanta, who is talking about how she stays fit over 60. So just having great stories and utilizing every opportunity we can to connect and engage with our audience.
Can I chime in on, you asked specifically about events. So one of our challenges as a legacy media company is linking the generations and print and digital. I mean, we're not at the point that we are giving up our print edition, not because we think newspapers are going to be around a long time, but because in our market, in order to get classified and legal notices, it has to come out in print. So that's one of the reasons that we hold on to that model. But I want to give you a concrete example of an event that we recently did that crossed, I think, generations and crossed print and digital. So we had a career fair. People have career fairs all of the time. But our sponsors purchased tables, and these were companies looking for employees. But they also advertised both print, digital, Facebook ads. You know, they did everything that we offered, including the videos that we do that they pay for. But when they came to the conference, we had set up a studio. So we did a digital conference at the same time we had a traditional career fair, which means that the employer could go into this room that we had set up, and we did a Facebook Live, and they could talk to our audience about their companies and the job openings. And so we had 25 employers on site. We had a couple of hundred people that came through, but we had many more people that we were able to say to that prospective employer, you can reach many more prospective employees. And so that's an example of an event that we did that worked well for us across platforms and across generations. So just wanted to answer your question
there. Thank you
there.
so much. I'm going to let y'all go ahead, and I want you to talk. But just to remind me, we only have 30 minutes. So yeah, we don't have much time.
And so just to
I
talk about...
haven't gotten to myth number 2
Yeah. Well, just to touch on the event that we do a monthly networking event called Interaction. And each month we highlight a different industry. And so that's been great with doing some targeted engagement with our audience. So one month we might do the music industry, another month we may do insurance industry, another month we may do, and it's been great because we get about 45 to 75 people each time we do it, and so that's been real helpful for like month-to-month engagement. Some of our annual events, we have a breakfast for women in business. And each March for Women's History Month, which gives our publisher, Janice Ware, an opportunity to speak directly to other women entrepreneurs and talk about just issues related to being a woman in today's male-dominated workforce. Additionally, we host a Best of Black Atlanta competition where our audience gets to nominate businesses and people for different categories, and then they also get to vote on them. And then in February, we just host a awards dinner where we recognize these people. And then the last event is during next August is a 50 under 50. So the best and brightest amongst in Atlanta, and what that is just our way of sort of recognizing people who have done great work, and then also honoring those who are up and coming talent.
Thank you. That's great in terms of, so what I learned from that exchange is the importance of combo sales in diversity in advertising and revenue strategies. Myth number 2. They're dying. In this era of Trump and Trumpism, there is, in my sense, there's been a revitalization of the black press and black media, and you have people coming to you because you are experts in your subject matter. Can you talk about being an expert at the same time as being a journalist in the subject matter, and how you are attracting younger users through social justice?
Tracy, can you repeat that second myth? They're not what?
I'm sorry. What did I say?
The second myth.
The second myth. Oh, they're dying.
They're what?
Dying.
Oh, dying.
Yes.
Okay, so let me speak to that just for a minute. So I have a prop. Let me pull my prop out. Sorry, guys, it's in print. So this was our 125th anniversary edition. This is my prop. I have one of them. You're welcome to take a look at it. And when you look through there, we divided it in sections, and I'll answer her question, not just about the Afro's beginnings, but our role on the national stage, our role in civil rights. And because we can go back so far, the first paper that we actually have a copy of is an 1893 paper. We have the most extensive African-American newspaper archives in the country because we are the oldest newspaper run by the same family, black newspaper in the country. And so we covered a lot of things that people did not cover, that mainstream media was not interested in because of lots of reasons that we don't need to discuss right now. But what we're finding is that our young people of all persuasions have not been taught all of American history. They know about Martin Luther King, but that wasn't until 1960s, right? They don't know about the journalist Fannie Lou, they don't know about Ida Wells. They don't know about Freedom's Journal, which was the first black newspaper in 1827. They don't know about the Pullman Porters' struggle to get fair wages on the what's now Amtrak, right? They don't know about the struggles, and it's not portrayed completely or completely accurately. So we've seen, if we talk about civil rights, you've seen the hoses and all of that. There's more to the story than that. And because we, for example, sent our own sanctioned correspondence to World War II and then published a book called This Is Our War, they can see it through a different lens. And I believe strongly if people don't know where they've come from, they certainly don't know where they're going. And so one of the problems that we have in urban centers is that our young people don't understand where they've come from. So the superintendent of schools in Baltimore said to me, Tony, we want to tell Baltimore African American history, and you have an extensive archives. How can we package that in a contemporary way so that when our teachers are using smart boards and computers and other technology to teach our young people, how can we take what you covered for 125 years and put it into some kind of curriculum? We're looking for some help to do that. That's a shameless plug, but we're trying to figure out how to do that well. And so that's the kind of content we have. When young people come, and not so young people come to visit our archives, they're amazed because you know, as publishers, you may take 20 pictures, but maybe only one will appear online or two will appear. We have all of the photographers' pictures. We have reporters' notebooks. So whether they ended up in the newspaper or in later years online, and by the way, you know, if you have access to your public library, there's an African American newspaper collection through ProQuest, and we are there from 1893 to 1988. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, that's amazing. I want to, maybe and Tyree can talk a little bit about this too, because your newspaper covers a predominantly black community, correct? And so when people say that black press and black media is dying, can you talk about how it is being the new jack on the block?
Well, it's really about just meeting them where they are. So print, so developing a print product doesn't make sense for us because we're starting digital. So we just make sure that we're going to places that people in this area are going. So the area she's talking about is Gentilly, New Orleans. It's predominantly family-based. It's a lot of families, so it's older citizens. So they're online. Some are on Facebook, but a lot of them are on Nextdoor. If you guys have that, yeah, that's very community-based, community-sourced updates. Really, I wouldn't mostly say news. It's like if somebody's cat's missing, they'll post it, that kind of stuff. So I know that the audience is there, so we definitely make sure that we post our stories to that, just to make sure that they see it and we're there. And we try to be, we post about the local universities as well, because we have Dillard University, Southern University, and University of New Orleans. And so those colleges will repost the stuff that we post so that their alumni and their current students actually know what's going on as well.
So Regina Boone, who was supposed to be here today and unfortunately is not, her grandfather started the Richmond Free Press in Virginia. Her mother is now publisher, and Regina is the heir. So there is a recognition among these publications that the next generation has to be invited in and come in and take over. And so that is what I'm seeing
happen. And Marshall is probably the incarnation of that right now at the Atlanta Voice. Thank you for correcting me. Janice Ware is the publisher. Jim Washington is her husband. He's the publisher of the Dallas Weekly. But can you talk about how when you came in and how you built a team in relatively short order?
Sure. So when, how many people on your team? So today my team, my management team is about 10. When I came in, it was a editor-in-chief. Well, it was a managing editor. They didn't have an editor-in-chief. They had a managing editor. They had an editorial assistant, and they had a part-time designer. Well, I came out of traditional media. I worked for Gannett, and I worked for Gatehouse, and I worked for Advanced Publications. And so there were things that I saw there that I thought were necessary to put in place once I took over this publication. So I hired a managing editor, I hired a director of photography, I hired a layout editor, I hired a copy chief, I hired a sports editor, I hired a Metro editor, and we also got a circulations person. We have a advertising assistant, and we have a general manager slash president who is Jim Washington, who's married to Janice Ware, my publisher. So they went from a 3-person shop to a 10, 12-person shop, and then I have a number of freelancers, and we have a robust internship program. So this summer we had 7 interns. This fall we have 6 interns. We're looking by next week. We have a meeting with one of the trade schools, and we'll probably take on another 5 interns who are all digital based. So these are students who are working with drones. They're working with, they're doing the digital work. They're doing films and documentaries. And so we are very excited to bring them on. And so we're looking at a team of about 30 people all together in a year's time. So our building is pretty active now.
So, myth number 2, they're dying. Okay, not true. You're growing by leaps and bounds. And the third myth number 3, no journalistic standards.
Let me just say we have journalistic standards. When I was looking through some of our archival material, I found a style book from 1932. And so we published a style book. We follow AP style, but we also had Afro style. For example, yeah, that's right, black was always with a capital B. And we gave titles to women, a part of our style, because of our history. And so, you know, we didn't call women by their first name, and we called them Mrs. or Miss or Ms. I think that's relaxed some, but that was part of the style. Journalistically, in order for us to be what's in a publication of record, we have to have standards. Neither our readers nor our advertisers are looking, or our supporters are looking for us to put out a below standard publication. And so we are not a supermarket publication. We are a legitimate media organization, and we have editorial standards. We certainly have marketing and advertising standards. We are paid subscriber base on our print side, right? And so we have those kind of standards, and I'm sure Marshall can speak to it as well. And so the workshops that I was in on yesterday on libel and copyright, and we have all of those issues that we have to be careful about as well.
Yes, and like Tony said, like we we're also a publication of record, so there's certain standards that we have to keep. But just integrity-wise, like we go to conference. We're always going to conferences to learn techniques and learn about and just continue to improve our editorial standards. That's just something that our integrity as in terms of what we mean to our community, that it's important for us to get it right. Furthermore, I mean, I guess it's the millennial in me. I'm competitive, so I'm trying to scoop the AJC. You know, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I'm trying to scoop them. I'm trying to be an expert on the topics that we do well. We want to be an expert on those, and that means that we have to have standards. We have to be aggressive about how we cover certain issues, and that requires a lot of care and nuance in terms of cultivating our sources and getting the news and getting the documents and putting it out there for our readers to consume. So as far as standards goes, like, that's really important for me because, you know, we can't be competitive if we don't play by the rules.
Great. All right. I think we're wrapping up pretty soon, but I want to get one thing out. Could you tell me about, like, how do you define impact, and what do you think is most impactful about what you do?
That's a good question. I think impact is it's objective, but it means a lot of different things in this market. So there's a local impact that is very important to us, and that means, like, carrying forth the tradition of excellence and what we mean to the community, that we continue to mean that, and that we introduce ourselves to multiple generations and keep the standard high from our legacy audience who have followed us or whose families have followed us for years. So as far as impact is concerned, it's being conscious of that ultimately it's always about the story, telling great stories, and making sure that our readers have the stories to connect to, no matter what the platform is. So whether we're telling the story on Facebook Live via an interview with someone, whether we're doing a micro story on Instagram, where a lot of the story is being told through the photo and the caption, or whether we're doing a feature-length story that's 1,100 to 1,200 words. Like, it's all about ensuring that great stories are told that inspire people and that make them feel something and get them engaging with our content.
So we are to coin the term we've been using, we are a hyper-local media outlet in national markets. So we're in Baltimore and in Washington, and so our impact and our influence goes beyond our local market. As our audience is looking for us to weigh in on issues that are important, not to just African Americans, but important for our community at large. And so because we're in heavily populated African American geographic locations, it's one thing, but we work with everybody. Because sometimes you can say it's black media and it sounds so separate, and it just sounds like, you know, we're off to ourselves. That's not the case. We cover a lot of things that we believe are impactful for our community, no matter who's at the subject of that article. And we try, again, to get it right. So we have influence and we have impact. We've been in the communities a long time, and so we've built a lot of relationships, political relationships, relationships with our churches, relationships with our systems of government, and we're responsive to that, and people do follow what we say. And so recently, this is just a recent example, one of our writers didn't do the due diligence and didn't keep the standard and put something. We have a completely online edition called the Prince George's County edition, a suburb of Maryland, and he wrote that the governor did not have a presence in Prince George's County. Well, he Googled it. That was his source, and he didn't see it, right? And so that's what he wrote. And so even though we wrote the correction after the governor's staff pointed it out, this person, and so that was, you know, that impacted negatively, right, and reflected negatively on our Republican governor, who's in a very heavily Democratic state, but he's going to get reelected. That's just a freebie editorial. But this person cannot write for us anymore. Veteran journalist, had worked for the Washington Post, had been an editor for us before. I made a decision he cannot write for us anymore because he should have known better. And so even that kind of impact, it goes both ways.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what you said, I think that because we are publications in large markets and we're hyper-local, I think that there's a responsibility for us to do a lot of enterprise journalism. So we do a lot of explaining concepts, explaining what things mean, and breaking things down for our audiences that anybody can find useful. Like, you know, in Georgia now, like, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but our Secretary of State is also running for governor. Well, the deadline for voter registration was last Tuesday. Well, there are 53,000 voter registration applications that are sitting on his desk, and AP broke a story about that. Yeah, they were mostly black, but there's a analysis that is important for us to explain to our readers about what this means, how this can impact the election. Many elections in Georgia over the last couple of years have depended on that 50,000 margin. So if there's a 53,000 margin that could just change, that could set the course of what the election is going to be right now. So it's important for us to explain that to our readers and explain why voting is important, explain why early voting is important. Just breaking down all these things that as an educated populace, we think people should know. But oftentimes they don't know. And so it's our responsibility as a hyperlocal publication to break these concepts down so that people get the understanding that they need to make informed decisions.
To answer, Tyree, your question about impact, I write in the Gates report that the Afro or the Atlanta Voice could write today that the mayor of DC or the mayor of Atlanta needs to step down, and it would make national news. It would get picked up by national news outlets. They have that kind of influence. Recently, the Atlanta Voice reported a piece about South Fulton and how it was being run entirely by black women. And CNN did a story on it right after they did it. So they have that kind of influence. I wanted to leave just a minute or two to ask just short questions. And then I also wanted to talk about opportunity, and I'll end it there. Any questions? Okay. I'll be like Oprah.
So much of the, it's kind of like the topic of the year right now in journalism is collaboration across publications, across verticals. And it sounds like from your panel that as black media, you collaborate with each other and there's like a deeply knitted together network. Are there efforts to collaborate across a cross between black media and maybe more traditional media. I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology here, but I think Tracy knows exactly what I'm asking.
So, and I know national publications. You can help me a little bit with hyperlocal collaboration, but with national publications, the HuffPost partnered with the St. Louis Afro-American because they to cover Ferguson. So, so that was one of the things they did, though, is they crowdfunded the reporter's salary. The reporter wrote for Huffington Post, but she was situated at the St. Louis American newspaper, and they crowdfunded her salary. I don't think that was a successful recipe, but it did last for a couple of years, 2 years.
There's some collaboration, not nearly enough. So we're members of the Maryland, D.C., Delaware Press Association, and there's a collaboration on advertising. And so we're sold as a group. So we're, as members of that association, then when they present to certain advertising clients, and we're part of that group, you know, it's not a big money maker, right? You get a percentage of it, but it is a collaboration. And there are clients that we don't have to, pitch to, if you will, because they're already in that group. And I'd love to see more collaboration.
I think as far as we're concerned, our collaboration is just mainly with a lot of advocacy groups that do a lot of advocacy in terms of journalism advocacy groups. So groups that do research and do like reaching out to like the National Press Photographers Association and some the First Amendment Center and things like that. So utilizing them as resources, as places that hold the data or can easily access the data that we need. I think that you bring up a great point about accessing or collaborating on some projects, because I think that there are some stories that cross ethnic lines, and I think that's something that I'm going to take back with me and explore.
My question's easy. It was just, how often are you publishing in print, and is it different for you on digital?
Well, in print, we're publishing weekly. Digital, we're publishing, we're updating every day. Every day.
Yeah, it's the same for us. We publish several times a day. We have 4 or 5 newsroom managers who are responsible for keeping track of breaking news. So when breaking news happens, we try to get it up within an hour. So we have alerts set up. So even if something happens at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we try to get it up as quickly as possible. And that's just a part of knowing that that's what's going to make us competitive in that market.
I've got a quick question from Seattle. My name's Greg Hanscom. I'm with Crosscut, but I lived in Baltimore for a while, and I know how tight the African American community can be, and I'm wondering how you walk the line between advocacy and journalism, particularly just given those tight connections within the community to the church, to the community itself. To what degree are you watchdogs, and to what degree are you advocates, and to what degree are you straight up journalists?
What a nice way to put it. We are a very cliquish community in Baltimore, especially the old line, if you will. You see it everywhere, and so it is a balance. We really believe in responsible journalism, and so we want to hold our community accountable. And so there's not a slam dunk, if you will, just because we are a black newspaper. We can't do that. Now, could we be a little more edgier? We're working towards that, because there's a whole group of folk that are not in that tight-knit community, right? And the tight-knit community is aging. And the group that's not in that tight-knit community wants access, and we are certainly giving access, and we want to call a spade a spade. And so we've been holding, for example, our police department accountable, and we may run the same thing across the top, both online and in print, every week. We want to know who killed Detective Sean Suter, and that reflects on the mayor. Or next week, we're starting a whole campaign online and in print. Who owns his house? Well, we're going to start with the city-owned houses, because Baltimore has 60,000 boarded-up houses. 60,000. And so that, we believe, is a way of advocating for that and holding them responsible and putting their names and say, oh, well, the mayor and city council of Baltimore owns this. They ought to do something about it.
So we have to wrap it up real quickly. These publications, these publishers, the reporters that work for these publications, I like to say, they were marching alongside those marching in the civil rights movement. They're alongside. And so they had to report on those marches. They had to, they had to be responsible to their communities, to their audiences, and their audiences also helped keep them on, kept them, and still do keep them honest. They're not going to let them slide and advocate for, not hold one person accountable and then hold someone else accountable. Finally, and so Dylan can pull me off the stage. These audiences are overrepresented on digital. As you heard, 700,000 followers on Facebook. So they get digital, but they don't have control of their audiences. Third parties control their audiences, and they get in the middle of the relationship that they have with their audiences. That's one of the main challenges when it comes to digital, the relationship that they have with their audiences. It's being not torn apart, but it's being tested by third parties. The other thing is, these publishers have no home. They have no home. NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, great organization, but it really focuses on journalists in mainstream media. It really does. The National Newspaper Publishers Association is not fully digital. All these newspapers are not created equal. So you have digital savvy publishers who are not necessarily getting the help and benefits that they need from NNPA. So there's a need for a home for them, and that's where Lion comes into play.
Thank you. And thank you, Lion.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Tyree. Thank you, Tracy. Coming up next, we have Peter from Site Impact, one of our esteemed vendors, sponsors, and he's going to talk a little bit about how to do more effective email marketing. And while he pulls up his slides, I'm going to give you guys another pitch to put your ideas up on the unconference board out in the lobby by this afternoon. You want to get your ideas posted, because that's where we're going to pull a lot of the sessions and create the sessions based on your input. That'll happen tomorrow, and you need to get those in today so that overnight we can figure out how everything is going to work its way into the schedule. So if you've got an issue that you think needs to be talked about more, if there's something that isn't on the schedule that you think should have been on the schedule, get it up on that board, and it might end up being a session on Saturday afternoon.
Ready? All set? Just need the slides. Okay. There you go. Hello, everyone. Hi, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm Peter Conti with Site Impact. It's on? Is this any better? Okay, good. I'm Peter Conti. I'm with Site Impact, and I'm going to show you a little case study here. Independent News Media is a group of 25 community newspapers and online sites, and they were collecting their own email addresses, but needed to increase their new email reach. So we worked with them to find more email recipients that match their ideal audience by using our database of more than 140 million plus opt-in and double opt-in email users, and had the ability to segment this list over 750 different ways. So we could filter it by geography, gender, demographics, interest, hobbies, and much more. So the ideal audience that was requested by the advertiser, well, first the advertiser was an Italian food market, and they wanted a specific area, so we picked a zip code and then a 25-mile radius around that zip code. And then we selected cooking, specialty foods, people that were interested in healthy cooking, people that were interested in fine dining, people that were interested in specialty foods and cooking, and we also selected food and wine enthusiasts. And here are some of the creative that they had, some of the emails that we sent out. The real-time count system returned the number of emails available, and the email creative was uploaded to our easy-to-use order management system, and we deployed the campaigns for them. And what we're looking at here is an image of some of the results that are on the real-time dashboard that you can let your advertisers use. It's a white label product, so it would have your logo, your look and feel. And there are 3 systems involved. There's the online count system, the order management system, and the real-time tracking platform. And the video doesn't want to seem to play.
Site Impact, the leading email marketing company other companies love. We come complete with in-house technology, expertise, and infrastructure to deliver huge volumes to your target audience. With over 70 skilled team members made up of a tribe of digital marketers and a magical technology and production staff and account and sales managers, Site Impact has helped power Fortune 500 companies, advertising agencies big and small, and local businesses for nearly 10 years. Our expert team is trained to make your email marketing program successful with the help of our in-house proprietary tools in place to supercharge your email campaigns, so you can have creative testing and deployment along with results-driven analysis all way faster than you think. Our in-house count system easily pulls data to construct the perfect audience to send your emails to. The easy-to-use order management system lets you review, edit, and place email orders whenever you want. And when you want to measure that tasty ROI, just log into our online tracking platform for real-time access to campaign results. Also, check out our newest product called Email Enhanced, which uses sponsored emails and contextual ads to guarantee inbox placement with your target audience. Layered on the foundation of your email program, Email Enhanced improves click-through rates and communicates your value to the audience who already loves what you're selling. And with our no bots guarantee, backed up by our sleuth's click scanning and filtering, you can be sure your traffic is real. More engagement, more opportunity to expand your audience. What a no-brainer. Well, it's easy to go on about what we can do. Let's put our skills to the test. Give us a call today and see for yourself, and you too can expand your engagement and visibility more than ever before. Thanks for watching.
Okay, like I mentioned, we're a white label product. There's no fees, no startup fees, no contracts, nothing like that. You just pay on a CPM basis. We power about 70% of newspapers and their websites across the country. And there's even postal addresses that match up with these emails. So if you wanted to follow up with a direct mail campaign, you could. For the attendees of the conference, we're offering a 50,000 email drop just for coming over and seeing me at the table, and I'll set you up for a demo sometime during the month of October. So thank you.
Okay, so we've come to the lightning talk portion of our program this morning. And by lightning, we mean we're going to bring people up right after another, and it's going to be quick. We might have time for like 1 or 2 questions, but we're actually only running about 10 minutes late, which is amazing. So we've got 4 of the coolest people here talking next. Janine Anderson will be up first from Harken. It's going to talk about how engaging your readers can lead to revenue. And I'm just going to introduce all 4 of you and then just come up, Avi Asher Shapiro from the Committee to Protect Journalists is going to talk about kind of the global picture of press freedom and threats on journalists, but how that really relates back to the local level and what you guys are seeing on the ground and how they need you to help communicate about that stuff to do their job. And then Crystal Knapp, one of the co-founders of Lion from Planet Princeton, is going to be talking about some experiments that she did with push notifications. And then finally, Susan Smith Richardson of Solutions Journalism Network is going to get up very quickly and talk about some opportunities for you guys to apply for some money to help with your reporting. So with that being said, Janine, come on up and maybe I shouldn't be touching anything here because I might break it. But I see it right there.
Yeah, so everything, all the prezzies are in these folders. So
all right. Should we try to do the keynote and see what happens?
Yeah, it should be good.
All right, we'll give it a go.
Yeah, it should be good to go.
Excellent.
You're going to show up just like you see down here.
Is it mirrored or is it?
It's mirrored, so like
so,
you look up there.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Boom.
Then let me do the other one. Oops. Well, maybe. We'll figure it out. I'll open that up again. Okay. I think I have to just change the view.
Yeah, just go to present mode.
There we go. That should work.
Yeah.
Okay.
As well.
Remote, excellent. It's perfect. Sorry, I'm really short, so I have to bring this way down there. Okay, can everybody hear me? I have a little bit of a cold and or allergies or something, so I'm not completely sure how it's all working today, but great, thank you. Okay, so now we'll go through this. So I want to just talk a little bit about engagement and connecting engagement with revenue, which is something that I think is a really great idea for a lot of reasons, partly because I think local news is so important and I want all of you to survive and thrive, and that means you need money. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. We're going to talk first, the company that I work for is called Harken, and we help newsrooms do something that we call public-powered journalism. And this is a way of connecting directly with your audience to fuel your actual journalism. So finding ways to serve them with what they tell you that they need, things like that. So I have a lot more information about that. If you guys want to know more, just let me know later. But right now we're going to kind of keep moving here. So this is how we define engagement. It's maybe a little bit different than some of the definitions that people often use, especially if they're trying to define engagement by a specific metric, looking at clicks or looking at shares. We feel like those are ways to measure different things, but when you're really talking about engagement, you're talking about relationships, and that means you're talking about a feedback loop. It has to go both ways. So this is the audience engagement ring that we use to talk about this. So we see newsrooms sometimes stop at one of these transition points. They'll invite feedback from the public, but then they don't get any back because they don't have a relationship where their audience feels comfortable sharing with them. Sometimes they'll get this information from the public when they ask for it, but then they forget to use it, or they use it in a strange way that doesn't showcase it and make sure that those readers and those audience members feel valued. But when you do all of these things all the way around and you continue to do it, you're really developing these great, healthy, and strong relationships that lead to loyalty and trust. Because they're relationships. They go in those two directions, and you continue that circle over and over again. And when you're listening to your public, it increases your value to them on sort of a personal level. It also increases their likelihood that they're going to be willing to support you with their money and their time and their energy. So these are some of the things that we've learned, through Harken. This is one of the things that we do is we provide technology along with consulting, and we help you kind of on an editorial and a technology basis to work on these engagement projects. You're able to collect emails from folks when they are submitting their questions to you and giving their feedback. we've seen people generate thousands of emails in this way, and thousands of people that are able to actually subscribe to your newsletter right through these technology embeds. So this is another slide that I really like. I'll just kind of let you guys read this one. It's a pretty straightforward little slide here. So it's about listening, and it's about serving them, and it's about building that kind of trusting relationship. So, oops, we have a typo in this slide. I'm sorry, guys. This is a kind of an illustration of how the public gets closer to your newsroom through engagement efforts. You're building awareness within your community of what you do and the things that you are covering. You're building engagement because they're responding to you and you're responding to them. You're building conversion by getting them into your funnel, having them convert to newsletter subscribers or monetary subscribers, to donors, whatever your model is. And then you want to make sure that you're able to keep them coming back for your product, whether it's coming to visit your site every day or continuing to open those emails that you're sending them to share your content with them. Now we're going to get into the kind of specific parts about revenue. So these are, sorry guys, 1 second here. These numbers are from an evaluation of working with Hearken that one of our partners did when we were working with Bitch Media. They found that their audience members who engaged through Hearken, were asking questions, responding in this very direct way, were 5 times more likely to convert to being paying subscribers. We also find that people are about 56% across our newsrooms pretty widely opting in to sign up for a newsletter when they're participating in these kinds of direct engagement efforts. And those are pretty strong numbers to be able to use to turn into forward-looking kind of audience funnel efforts. We also see, I think that there's some style issues with my fonts here. So what this says is $40,000 and 10% of the entire campaign and 171 first-time donors. This was an effort from Vermont Public Radio, which is a nonprofit public radio out in Vermont. They have a Hearken project that they run that's called Brave Little State. It's beloved by the people who listen to it. They made a Brave Little State t-shirt, and they put that up as a premium on a pledge drive, and they found these numbers, this $40,000 in donations, which was 10% of the entire campaign, and it was 171 people who had never donated to the station before who were willing to participate when they were offering this kind of engagement-related premium with their pledge drive this year. This is kind of a statement from a donor who increased their donation to a public radio station in North Carolina, WFDD radio station there as well. This person, because of this engagement project that they do where they're really taking direct ideas from the audience and putting those into fully reported pieces that the community can learn from, increased their donation from $20 to $1,200. And then this is one of the more powerful examples that we have. KPCC out in California took questions from their audience during some of the wildfires that were happening out there, responded to every question as quickly as possible to make sure that they were filling all of these information needs right away. Somebody contacted them afterward and gave them a $30,000 donation specifically because of this effort and the value that they found in it and the value they felt in supporting this kind of work overall at that station. This is a different kind of journalism than a lot of folks often are doing, and it can pay off in these direct individual ways. Creating events from an engagement perspective is also something that we help newsrooms do and see a lot of value in. This is looking at what your audience needs and wants before you would put this together. So just, can I get a show of hands, how many of you run events at your organization now? Lots of you. How many of you work with your audience before you create the event to make sure your event is something that they want and need? Couple, that's good. It does something different when you work with them ahead of time. You are ensuring before that event gets on, before you're spending the money to put it on, before you're spending the time to plan it, you are involving them and ensuring that you're going to serve them. And that can help increase the number of people who are going to be served directly in that event, and that they're going to be willing to kind of help you out with more things. So we're going to just go through a couple of examples from some of the events that our partners have worked on. This is a high dollar value event. This was put on by a public radio station in Pittsburgh. They have this curiosity cruise that they run. It's tied in with their Hearken series called Good Question. Tickets are $125 a person to go on this. They sold out the first year that they did it. And people who went on this cruise got a chance to interact with staff, meet them, and they live produced a Good Question episode on the boat sailing down the river. So it was a kind of a little perk. They got access to people they wouldn't normally get access to, and the station was able to make some significant money out of this event. A lower dollar value from another Pittsburgh partner, this is The Incline, which is a spirited media website. They are collecting questions right now for this Homewood Cemetery tour. So it's tied in with the season, and tickets for this one are $15, but the people who go on this are able to ask questions before the tour happens. So then they're going to be able to give these questions to the person running the tour, find out the answers, and when you go, your question is likely to be answered when you're on this tour. So it's not just like, here's this person's grave, here's this story about this community founder. It's the stories and the questions that the people who are on the tour knew in advance, and people are able to prepare and directly answer those. And then we also see some people using engagement as a way to highlight audience members and give them special access or special treatment at an event. So Reckon by AL.com ran some gubernatorial debates during the primary for their governor's race a couple months back. They collected questions in advance. If they were going to use that person's question, they gave them a VIP ticket, said, come, sit somewhere close. You see your question asked of these candidates at this event. They had some people take them up on it, and that was just another way to kind of be able to say, like, your question was so valuable that we're going to have you sit in this special place. You get a great view. Come on and join us for this. Access as a perk is another thing that we're seeing some places do. We work with the Dallas Morning News. That's the picture on the left. They do subscriber tours of their newsroom, and whenever people come in, their engagement efforts are some of the most talked about projects that they hear about on these subscriber tours, because those are the ones that make people feel really important to the newspaper. And then on the right, that's a photograph of some people who got to watch WBEZ edit a story because of an engagement project they were doing as well. And then we're going to talk about sponsorships and underwriting. So this is kind of the most traditional, I think, way to make money off of anything in journalism. It's the revenue model that we were all founded on. When it comes to engagement, it can be really popular with folks in your community because this work tends to be well-liked. It tends to be pretty positive in nature, and it tends to be well-known and popular. It's good brand recognition because people are involved with it and care about it. They want to see these things continue and succeed. So these are just some of the ways that we've seen people bring advertising into specifically engagement work. Curious City, which is a Harkin project here in Chicago, run out of WBEZ, gets a $100,000 sponsorship. That's WBEZ is huge, and that's not the kind of market that most of you guys are working in, but it's an example of the kinds of dedication that your sponsors and underwriters could find in this work. We see people being able to easily sell these kinds of series to folks. WWM in Milwaukee sells their Harkin series pretty easily. There have been some really fun examples of underwriting on short-run series. On the bottom right corner, this is a project that they did specifically around the Kentucky State Fair, and they got a direct sponsor for that, which was just a small run piece, but it was something that that person was really interested in supporting that work. And then the Knight Foundation has been supporting this influencer series in Florida. So I'm gonna stop there. Ooh, we have an animated GIF. And that's all I've got for you guys. Anybody have any questions? I'm happy to take a couple. I think we have 1 or 2 minutes. Hi, Jay.
How has the Harkin recently partnered with the LenFest Institute to, along with other engagement tools, to help small publishers or other publishers start to use your tool? How has that gone with that project going?
It's going fairly well, I think. Yeah, oh, absolutely, sorry. Jay had asked how the partnership that Harkin has along with GroundSource, and there's a few other tools that are being brought in on this next funding round, but it's a subsidy program to help small organizations, nonprofits, and like specific local publications afford access to the tools and the consulting that Harkin, GroundSource, Coral Project, I can't remember the fourth one that's coming on with this one, but there's another one, Listening Post. So those are the 4 tools that have been supported through LenFest so far. We are finding that it's working with these the kind of Lion type folks on these projects is super exciting because you guys already have such a deep understanding of the fact that your audiences are important. You know, like so many of you have these great stories about coming into being because you wanted to serve a community and meet a need that you saw. So this level of engagement and serving your community is already present in the heart of what you do. So we're getting to do some really fun work. I talked with Tracy yesterday about some of the things that you guys are doing at Richland Source and what you want to do going forward, and I'm looking forward to that. We have the Incline, the cemetery tour that I put up there. They were a partner that came in through Clef as well with this kind of stuff. So does that answer your question? It's okay. Yeah, it's going pretty well. We're happy with it. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Great.
I just needed to bring a browser window up, and that should be good.
Okay, good. So you should have. You should have dialed in.
Is that happening up there? Yeah. Is that readable? Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Avi Asher Shapiro. I research press freedom in North America for the Committee to Protect Journalists in New York. This is my first time at Lion, and I'm really happy to be here. It's been awesome to meet people. This is an incredible group, and I'm going to try to do this quickly and concisely, and so that respect the schedule. I wanted to talk to you just briefly about a project that we work on called the Press Freedom Tracker that I think is something we're trying to spread the word about that would be really useful for folks here to know about. So I want to ask, how many people here's organizations have been denied access to a public facility or to documents, public documents they think that they're entitled to as part of their reporting? How many of you have contacted the Press Freedom Tracker about it? Right, so that's why I'm here. No, it's not your fault at all. So it's new. The point. So the Committee to Protect Journalists is part of a large coalition of about 24 press freedom organizations in the United States that launched this in 2017, and it's meant to be sort of like a comprehensive clearinghouse for press freedom violations in the United States, and it was sort of motivated by the renewed interest in press freedom around the Trump administration, but very much in touch with the fact that a lot of these problems are longstanding and might not have anything to do with what's happening in Washington. So I just wanted to run through kind of what the Press Freedom Tracker does real quick and get people excited about reporting their press freedom violations to the tracker in the future. So basically, we divide, the Press Freedom Tracker divides kind of violations into these different areas, but it's a comprehensive clearinghouse, so there's sort of an other kind of component. But so there's arrests and criminal charges of reporters, and you can see up top here, this is scrolling with me, right? So we have 5 so far this year, and we don't have comprehensive data from last year because we started midway last year, but it was 34 arrests for the portion of last year that we covered, or that the Press Freedom Tracker covered. So yeah, we have arrests, border stops, chilling statements, which I think is something that would be of interest to folks here. So it documents anything from when the president goes after a reporter to an incident in a city. There was an incident in California recently where a city councilman threatened a reporter with his dog in a supermarket. So anything that is deemed to be a chilling statement, trying to dissuade reporting is something we'd want to hear about. Denial of access. The Freedom Tracker documented a case in Chicago just this week of a reporter trying to cover the trial here, the big trial, and who was arrested for filming, right? So this is documented on the tracker. This is the sort of thing we want to hear about. Equipment searches, this is a big deal at the border, but also a big deal at protests. Leak cases, physical attacks, prior restraint. So we're also interested in legal issues as well. So prior restraint and subpoenas. I'm actually kind of curious here, to see a show of hands, folks who've ever been subpoenaed or been threatened with a subpoena or gotten a legal order in connection with their work. Okay, so, and I imagine who have reported it to the Press Freedom Tracker. Yeah, okay. Not a problem. So that's just a basic rundown of what the Press Freedom Tracker is interested in. It has 2 dedicated full-time reporters and a managing editor. It's run day-to-day by the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which is a partner organization of the Committee to Protect Journalists, and they will run down your stuff. If there's a problem, they will call the city council. They will call the police. They will, if someone's suing you, they will call them, and they will document the incident. And I think it's a tremendous resource. It's also meant to inform the kind of advocacy and legal strategy of the press freedom organizations that are behind it, like the Reporters Committee and CPJ and the Freedom of the Press Foundation, the Knight Institute, Index on Censorship. These big kind of umbrella freedom of expression organizations take the data and incidents from the tracker and use it to inform what they do. I mean, like one small example of this is there was 10 journalists were arrested last year in St. Louis during protests after an officer was acquitted during a shooting, and they're all documented on the tracker. And after that, a number of our partner organizations got together and pressed the police department to add new training for their cops and how they deal with reporters at protests, because there was clearly a problem. 10 reporters arrested at a protest, too many. Clearly something was wrong. So that's just a small, these are the sorts of trends. When we pick up on these trends, the partner organizations involved in the tracker can get in there, make some changes, push for more transparency, push for better policies, all that sort of thing. I think that's pretty much it. If there's any takeaway, it would be email the tracker. The email is tips@pressfreedomtracker.us, and I convinced the lovely people here at Lion to put a piece of paper in all of your bags that has that in it. It has a bit of our data, a bit more about the organization. And if you have any questions about it, please find me. I'll be here today. I'll be here tomorrow. This is my first time at Lion, so I want to just please come up and say hi and tell me what we should be working on. That's sort of why I'm here. And if anyone has any questions, here I am. Yeah.
Other than the tracker, do you provide any support to people who are dealing with any of these issues you talked about?
Yeah, so for direct legal, if you have a direct legal issue, we recommend you contact the Reporters Committee. And I think Jen is here. I don't know if she's in the room here, but there's the Reporters Committee for the Freedom of the Press will handle direct legal problems. But the Committee to Protect Journalists is definitely should be seen as a resource. If we don't have lawyers on staff, so if it's a I need a lawyer thing, the Reporters Committee is your first stop. But if there's a real problem with press freedom in my community, or there's a person or public official who is a huge menace to the press here, we can help. Definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Get over to the other tab. Hi, Jim. Good to see you. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, no problem. So, all the presentations are right there, so I'm sure yours is in there somewhere.
Where's I saw it? It was up on the screen a minute ago, like before his, but I don't see it now.
What's the name? Is it
It was push notifications.
was it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The link.
Google
The
Slides
Google.
stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was just on the screen.
Yep, we're good, we're good. Just. And
It was like that one, maybe. It's darker. It's a gray screen. I don't know. No. I saw it up on your screen right before he spoke.
yeah. I think somebody closed that window. That's so you sent me a Google link, right? All right. All right. Just bear with us for a second here. Sorry.
While Jay's pulling up the presentation, I was wondering, how many of you use push notifications already? Raise your hands. Curious. Okay, interesting. I thought there would be more people than that, so.
You got it.
Oh, great, thank you. So I hope, oh, great, thanks. So I hope this talk will encourage you to give it a try and experiment. So why did I start using push notifications? Well, about a year ago, a little more than that, I said to myself, I need to find ways to wean myself from my dependence on social media platforms for my traffic. At one point, Facebook was 80% of my traffic, and I was in the hand. I felt like I didn't want to have my fate in the hands of an unpredictable algorithm. Facebook is still an important traffic driver, but push notifications have become more and more important. So, and email. So, push notifications and email are responsible for me both maintaining traffic and growing traffic on my site, and also members. So, I'd say 95% of my members get their news alerts through push notifications and email on Planet Princeton. So at first I thought, well, gee, I can't do it because it's going to cost me a lot of money. It turns out there's a platform called OneSignal. It's totally free. And why is it free? Because they take the data they gather from the several 100,000 customers they serve, and they sell it to companies. So that's how they make their money. So they offer an interface for every major CMS platform. Their WordPress interface is great, and they offer it for Drupal. They even offer it for, God forbid your site is still on like Weebly or Blogger. I've even seen people still have news sites on Blogger. And then if you have something like Expression Engine or some other CMS, you can have a developer customize JavaScript to implement it. So, Joomla, yes. So this is their website. You get a logger, you log in, you create an account, you log in, and there's a dashboard. So this is the WordPress interface. Some people might think, I'm already having so much, I have to put so much effort into Facebook and Twitter and Instagram now. I can't handle one more thing. Well, if you see, there's a little, on the right, upper right, OneSignal push notifications. All you have to do is check that little box for a push to go out. It took me 15 or 20 minutes to set up my account and customize it. I actually have my account set up so that by default the box is checked, and then if I don't want to push something, I uncheck it. So really simple, really easy. I've had questions. Sometimes they have a great database, a great knowledge base online, documentation that answers a lot of questions. I use this to send out stories, but I also will push sponsored posts. I'll push calendar items. If you're using the Modern Tribe calendar, you can check off to push out that event. I use it to push out ads sometimes, or appeals for members. You can push out notifications even if you don't want to, even if it's not a story. So you log into the OneSignal dashboard. I use this like when there's flooding, flash flooding, or some other kind of emergency. I send just a little brief pop-up message to my subscribers. And they can access it on their desktop, on their tablet, on their mobile phones too. So all devices now. It used to be they didn't support Safari, but that just recently changed. So how do people subscribe? So when they visit the website, they see this little bell on the lower right corner, subscribe to notifications. They click it, pretty easy. And then how do they unsubscribe? I'm using QCity Metro's, a screenshot of QCity Metro, because Glenn has a really nice, he's customized it with his logo there. I thought that was pretty cool. Pardon? Yes, don't hit unsubscribe, but sometimes people have a hard time finding this. I found on my site, like navigating to that bell again to unsubscribe, but I like the branding there. So And this is an example of a push notification. It shows up in the lower right corner. It's great. You have nice images. It draws attention. Sometimes mine are just texts. And then it's amazing how much data you can gather from this. All sorts of analytics about, you can see how many people clicked on the push notification, what times they looked at the notification, what the peak time was, how many bounced for various reasons, all sorts of information. And they've been getting better and better at providing more data. There are also some third-party plugins that extend how you use OneSignal, and then also the analytics you get from it. And they just recently created an integration with Google Analytics. So now I use the Google Analytics dashboard to look at my information. Okay, the pitfalls. Basically, to sum it up in one sentence, don't annoy people. I had to learn this the hard way. Don't make the mistakes I made. I used to syndicate everything on every channel. So OneSignal, Facebook, Twitter, everyone was getting everything. People started to unsubscribe because it got annoying. Like, they don't want the Girl Scout Jamboree photos through OneSignal push notifications, I learned. So nowadays, I send out like breaking news, major features, explainer pieces. I'd say minimum of 1 push a day. I try to do no more than 3 unless it's a breaking news situation. So, and then the other pitfall is people forget that they subscribed and pushed that little bell saying subscribe me. So in the beginning, I got a lot of emails from people saying, hey, take me off your email list. And I'd be like, what's your email address? You can click the unsubscribe on MailChimp at the bottom. No, they didn't see it. So I said, I don't see your address in our database. And it turned out they were getting push notifications. So that just shows you how unaware people are sometimes of how the news is coming to them. And I would even say to people, I'd give them the instructions, you need to go to the little bell in the browser, and they get really angry with me and claim like I was trying to hold them hostage. And so I had to develop a little spiel, an email template saying, hey, explaining to them what OneSignal is, how it works, and really stressing like, that wouldn't be good for my brand to, do something that you don't want me doing. It would just upset you. It doesn't build loyalty for readers. Yes?
So are all of these browser notifications, or can you get text messages?
No, it pops up on your browser. Yeah. No text messages. Yes?
If it's on mobile, they'll pop up on your cell phone.
Yes.
So it's almost like a text.
Yes, almost like a text. Yes? Well, they're not subscribing via email. It's just their browser. So that's the thing I tried to get across to people too, who are upset or when trying to figure out how to unsubscribe. I say, wouldn't it be scary if I had control of your browser, on your computer? And people get that. So no, I don't have any way. Unlike email subscribers through MailChimp or something, I don't have any way to identify the people. So yes. I'll talk about that in a second. Yep. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. Pushback from people who, yes, they know. Pushback from people about their data being used. OneSignal doesn't know who they are also. So, yes. Yes, it's in, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
In what way, when they click subscribe, in what way do they see an explanation?
There's not an explanation when they subscribe, but there's a free FAQ I have for people, so that's on the website. So, and then in an email I send to people if they have questions. So. Best pra- Privacy policy, yes, that's right. So best practices around this, survey your readers. I did a survey of readers, and it turned out only like 20% of my readers wanted the push notifications for everything. The rest only wanted it for breaking news, major stories. Some people, don't want push notifications. Others said, I don't go to your website. I get all your stories through Facebook, which actually I don't even have instant articles, so they don't realize that they're clicking actually to my website. Interesting, but create an FAQ on your website. That helps, when you can point people to that. That way you're not repeating the same thing over and over. It also gives more, I feel like, credibility to you that you, when you can send a link to that FAQ. And I always try to help people. Like sometimes it even means calling them and walking them through how to unsubscribe or to subscribe. So, and then review your analytics to determine what kinds of stories people want via push notification and the best times to send notifications. For example, we had a shooter who pulled out a gun at a Panera and had a standoff with police. Like 85% of my readers who subscribe to push notifications clicked on those notifications. Now, I covered a zoning board meeting that I thought people felt was newsworthy, yet only 3% of my subscribers clicked on that, yet 20% clicked on one that went out by mistake about a lost cat in the neighborhood. It was kind of depressing. But so hey, people like the pet stuff, so. Review your other delivery methods. So I had to rethink my email newsletter because people were, I would say I wasn't really growing my newsletter like I wanted to. People were saying to me, well, I already get your news on Facebook or on push notifications, so I don't just want the RSS feed of your most recent stories. I totally retooled my newsletter, and now it highlights like important things to know for the day ahead, so I send it out the night before. So this is the weather forecast for tomorrow. These are the traffic problems, and these are all the events happening tomorrow. And then underneath that, I have links to the stories from the last 24 hours. So, and then to remember, it's just one more tool. So I implemented about a year ago. I serve a community of 30,000 people. I have 4,500 subscribers. So. Last month, I gained 365 new subscribers and only lost 6. So that was a really good month. So I feel like that being more selective is really working for me now. And then, so I would say like the average click rate is something like 15%. So at first I thought, like, wow, I have 4,000 subscribers now. And I go and I look at the analytics and I'm like, boo-hoo, but only 20% are actually clicking, But that's still that's still pretty good. And if I look at my analytics in terms of my site overall, my page views, push notifications account for 17% of my traffic now. That's huge, right? So, and it's growing. So I encourage you all to give it a try. If you have a few other Lion publishers, I've helped them implement it on their sites. I'm happy to help if you go to do it and you have questions, you want to talk in the lobby, just reach out to me. So many people here have helped me implement new things that I just want to pay it forward and help others. So, thanks.
Let's get this one off of here. Hi. Yes, I'm exiting here. It always just takes me a second because I'm so used to doing my own. Yeah, I just have here I am, yeah. Yep. Okay, I think I'm driving. My only problem is always this one. Get it big. All right, I got it, and I just need to, yeah, right. Under slideshow. Yeah. Yep. Oh, fabulous. I think I'll just use this one, though. Thank you. Yeah, I was just doing this yesterday.
Well, I want to thank Lion for asking me to speak. My name is Susan Richardson. I'm editorial director with Solutions Journalism Network. And I want to give a quick shout out to Timothy Bennett. Timothy, are you in the room? Timothy sent me an email or reached out to me on LinkedIn already and said, oh, I want to talk to you about some of these grants. So, smart man.
She's also former publisher of the
Yes, I will. And I'm going to try to just do my 5 minutes, but let me give my quick story. And that was this time last year, I was at the conference and I was publisher of the Chicago Reporter, which is an investigative news organization that focuses on race and poverty here in Chicago. I was here, we were working closely with Solutions Journalism Network, and actually I sat in on a session with Carolyn, one of my colleagues, and Richland Source about the work that they were doing. And it all sounded so good to me that I decided I'd take a new job. So this is my first year here representing Solutions, but Lion is a great organization. I don't have any good cat stories or how to, maybe our story would be solving the mystery or how people went about solving the mystery of the missing cat. We are all about solutions to big issues, big social issues that are playing out across the country. Before I go there, though, I want to say one quick thing. I always love when someone introduces me as the woman who has some money because that does immediately make you popular, right? And there's money to discuss. I'm not going to get into the weeds of all that because I'm going to try to respect this 5-minute thing, but I do want to say I have tons of cards, lots of things to talk to you about, so please do grab me after this presentation, and I'll be around also on Saturday to talk particulars. What I'm going to do, though, is try to give you a quick overview and a sense of a range of opportunities at Solutions Journalism. So first, how many of you here are aware of Solutions Journalism Network? Okay, well, my work is done here. So I'm just gonna get right down to the nitty-gritty to remind you, because when we sit and talk, getting the core ideas down is really going to be helpful. So the organization was started in 2013. We will skip the luminaries who started the organization, but the core work here is that the goal was to change journalism practice by adding a whole new thought, and that's this. How do people report about responses to social problems? We all know that journalism, and I was talking to some students yesterday, is about, a number of conventions, one of which is conflict and exposing problems and investigative journalism. But the other side of the accountability of journalism is looking at how organizations, institutions, and people are responding to problems. And that's what Solutions attempts to spread. The idea that we should report just as hard about solutions to issues as we do about the problems that we're seeing in society. So we want to support what really is, first and foremost, a mindset change. So how do you do that? Money, of course, is a piece of it, because if we live in the real world, we know that money provides a charming incentive, right? But we do it in a couple of different ways. So there's the mindset change. And then we work in kind of 4 different buckets. Yeah, all my buckets are showing up here. I'll get to newsroom partnerships last, because that's the piece I really want to drill down on. But we do community building. We have meetup groups, just as ONA does, just as INN does, in communities across the country. We also have university outreach. If you want to talk about changing how we practice journalism, one place to start, it was an obvious place, in journalism schools, and talk about integrating Solutions journalism courses into the curriculum in the same way as students, learn multimedia skills or talk about investigative journalism. So we work in a university space to begin to change the culture and change the mindset around reporting. And we have online learning platforms, which are terrific. Everything from a story tracker, where you can go and actually look at something that Richland Source did, a story about voting rights and how people are responding to voter suppression laws. You can look at a range of stories that have been written from a Solutions point of view. And then there's also just simple tutorials like, okay, so how do I actually produce a Solutions journalism story? Can a solutions journalism story play out through a podcast? Can I do a visual solutions journalism story? All that good stuff is online. But the piece I want to talk about, and the one that has me in the room, involves MONEY, and that's newsroom partnerships. If you want to create change, obviously, you got to work with folks on new ways to report about stories. So a number of the things we do involve, workshop trainings with individual news organizations, individual consultations, which is a lot of what I do, audience engagement. We look at data and metrics, but we also figure out ways to partner with newsrooms to fund reporting that you all come up with. We just simply ask this. Since we are really interested in how, on the other side of the journalism accountability piece, the responses to problems, we just want to work with you around stories that you come up with that are responses to big social issues in your community. You know what they are. You've got the history and the credibility there. Our job is to come in and work with you. But we also know, too, that especially if you're a smaller publisher, and when I was at the Reporter, we had a staff of, I think I started, if I can't believe it, with the staff of 3. We ended up with the staff of 9, although the Marshall from the Atlanta paper made me really feel like I hadn't done that much when he told me how they grew rapidly. But, we had significant growth, but we were a small news organization trying to punch above our weight. So the grants we were able to get from Solutions Journalism made a difference and allowed us to be able to send people to travel. So what kind of things are we talking about? So we're talking about grants for projects that you identify in your community. They could be something that just your organization wants to do and you simply want money for travel. Or they could be a larger project that's ambitious, that involves other organizations, or just maybe you, but it's a big long-term project. We offer funding for that. And it could also be a collaboration with other news organizations in your community or even across the state. Right now, Solutions helped to launch a major project in Philadelphia called the Reentry Project, which was all about getting news organizations in that community together to report about a single issue that was critical in Philadelphia, and that was what was happening with people who were returning from prison. How are they being reintegrated back into the community? We also are now launching a collaborative in Charlotte, North Carolina, involving multiple news organizations there. Across platforms, so-called mainstream, or as I often say, white corporate media, along with ethnic media, pulling a range of people together to work on an issue that they define as critical in their community. And then we're also doing individual programs like the one I run, which I'm always happy to do a shameless plug for, which is called Renewing Democracy. This is in 2 pieces, and this is the main project that I'm rolling out now. I forgot to mention the bigger grants on this one, but let me tell you a little bit about this one, because Lion and Matt have been nice enough to promote this one in emails to you. About a year ago, Solutions created this program called Renewing Democracy because we were looking at what was happening in the country nationally, the hyperpartisanship, all of the divisive language, and saying, well, how do you begin to get around that? If people see all of this paralysis, they're going to tune out. It's like the ultimate of doing the Netflix binging. You just want to disconnect from it because it all seems so crazy and hopeless in terms of change. So the idea for Renewing Democracy was to actually take that lens and look elsewhere. What are people doing across the country to try to change, to try to engage people, to try to engage them civically, to try to engage them in changing institutions, how people are elected, solving big problems like what do you do with folks when they return from prison. So this new round of Renewing Democracy, we thought it would be powerful to tie it to the midterm elections. When you think about everything that is both at stake in the elections and the tone and the conversation around the elections, we wanted newsrooms to think about how organizations in the walk-up to the midterms are looking at ways to address issues of voter participation, registration, campaign finance, a number of issues related to that. So the deadline for that is coming up on November 13th. I'd really love for some of you to apply for that. This is one of our smaller grants, which means it's $2,500 to an individual newsroom. But I also want to point out the other piece I didn't come prepared to talk a lot about, but we could talk about that one-on-one, which is a larger part of Renewing Democracy, grants up to $30,000 that talk about a long-term, year-long project in collaboration with other news organizations that look at ways in which communities are trying to re-engage people around democracy. So a big way to kind of get back to our core function that we see helping to spread solutions journalism and also working with newsrooms is through providing a range of grants on different topics. There are too many for me to begin to describe now, but I just want to say, get me after this presentation, catch up with me in the next 2 days. I'm happy to talk to you about some of the different things we're doing. Here is my email. Here is the website for Solutions Journalism. Do we have a second for at least one question? Or? We don't. Okay, all right. So I'm here, and thank you. And show. Perfect.
Jonathan from Virtual Committees is going to tell us a little bit about what he's been up to, and he's promised to not take too long because people are itching for a coffee break, I think. But I want to hear more.
Good, thanks. Susan, thank you. That was a great lead-in. I actually have a solutions journalism solution, which is an iframe you plug into your website to have an ideologically balanced discussion on any topic that bubbles up from your community or that you would like to bubble into your community. How many of you here have no competition? 2, 3. If you take an article that you write and you put it next to an article that your competition writes and you cover the branding, will any of your readers know the difference? All right, here's the point. From 4 top-eds, the kind of journalism that you'll be able to have, the stories you'll be able to write, it will not look like your competition. And these are solutions to problems that almost everyone in the community knows what the answers are, but they're not being discussed. Come see me at my booth. Have a great coffee break.
Thank you very much. We are predictably enough running just a little bit behind, so we're going to shrink this coffee break down to just 5 minutes. And go grab yourself a cup of coffee, do whatever else you might need to do. Come back in here in 5 minutes. Thank you.
So I tried to make this relatively simple. All of the presentations are in this folder that are right here. So everything that we've gotten from everyone is in this folder right here. So basically they should just be able to point and go. You know.
This is me. Open it up and go.
Boom, boom. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, go.
Here's they've got a remote. Remote works.
Okay.
They have a mic. The mic works. This is Doreen Mendoza. Roses, which we don't need anymore. This is Kenny's, which is also not necessary anymore. This is Harkins, also not necessary.
Whose pewter is this?
This is Chicago.
This is theirs.
This is yeah.
Okay.
So the only thing that I would recommend is that we open up a Google. You are currently logged into my account because I had a few people sending